NPC. And for those who were against it, they felt that the jailing was politically motivated. Many years down the line, Ghana has had other high-profile cases, and the narrative surrounding these cases has been the same. But is it really the case that governments over the years have been prosecuting people with the laws of Ghana politically? Is it really a rule of law or rule of politics? And how do we correct it if indeed the perception that people have is what it is? Hello, good evening. Welcome to Agenda. My name is Beatrice Adu, and tonight we want to look into this issue and whether or not there's any merit at all to this perception that governments come in and go and they have one of the aims to politically prosecute people using the country's laws. I do have in the studio with me the Honorable Inus Hussaini, his lawyer, and also former Member of Parliament for Tamale Central in the Northern Region. Good evening to you, sir. Thank you very much for joining us.
Well, thank you for having me.
I also do have a video call with us, the Honorable John Darkon, who is a Member of Parliament for Menshia, Member of Parliament for Swami, and he's also the legal counsel for the minority in Parliament as well. Good evening to you, sir. Thank you very much for joining us as well.
Yeah, thank you for having me. And good evening to your cherished viewers.
And very shortly, we'll be joined as well by Professor Enoch Enchi, who is a governance expert, for him to equally bring us his perspective on this argument as well. My name is Beatrice Adu. Remember that Agenda is brought to you by the Bank of Africa. Bank of Africa, as strong as a group, as close as a partner. We're also streaming live on 3FM 92.7, of course, as well as all our social media platforms. Do send us your comment and we'll read them back to you. I want to start with you, the Honorable Inus Hussaini. Before we even go into the cases that we've seen over the years, what are your preliminary thoughts on the perception that high-profile legal cases we've had are basically politically motivated?
So, first of all, let me thank you for this invitation to discuss this important topic, especially at this time that prosecutions are going on of persons who occupied political offices and private persons who are thought to have breached the laws of this country. It couldn't have come at a better time. And also to say good evening to my colleague. I mean, I am a former Member of Parliament, and so a politician and also a lawyer. It's important to understand that since the promulgation of the 1992 Constitution, two values have made it to our Constitution in the preamble: probity and accountability. Until the 1992 Constitution was promulgated, those values, even though good for good governance, were not really part of any constitutional arrangement, especially in the preamble of the Constitution. So anybody occupying public office must know that probity and accountability are values that we cherish. And because the resources of states are given to people or are made available to people to conduct the affairs of their offices for the benefit and welfare of the people. And this is stated in Article 1 of our Constitution, that the powers of government must be exercised for the benefit and welfare of our people. In exercising those powers, a responsibility is put on those occupying the office to conduct themselves in ways that clearly are consistent with democratic values. Now, our resources must be safeguarded. The purse must be protected. Now, anything that you are doing must be transparent. And then you must be responsible for those decisions that you have taken in office. I mean, we do so because we believe that this office, which imposes a responsibility on you, puts another burden on you, the burden of accounting to the people. Now, in our democratic setting, it appears to be difficult for governments in power to demand and exact accountability from appointees of government. Really, really very difficult. In fact, we've not seen, in this Fourth Republic, we are yet to see government in office exercising and demanding accountability from its citizens.
Because they don't want to touch their people.
Not that they don't want to, because they just think that if they do so, I mean, that's my view. It will go to confirm. I mean, if that public officer is being accused of corruption, it will go to confirm that government is corrupt. And then governments try to use informal ways of dealing with their appointees. The only option left really is for is when the government loses power, and then there's political accountability. The loss of power itself is political accountability, because that is when we go back to the polls to see whether we can continue the government in office or hold the government accountable for actions it has done in the past.
But holding people accountable after a government has left power, is it not indicative that indeed governments are not willing to touch their own, and it takes another person who doesn't feel that these group of people belong to me to then hold them accountable?
No, it is not so. Not the government is not willing to touch its people. And I cite the case of the Ibrahim Adam, I've forgotten his name, was a minister for local government mobilization during the time of Rawlings, who were reported to the citizens, to the vetting committee. I mean, a committee was set up for them to account for certain things, that they had properties that they said they had, things that they said they did which were inconsistent with the principles that the government stood for, and so they were called to account. And if you remember clearly, Rawlings demonstrated that he could hold his ministers and appointees accountable, and so it might not be that exactly true to say that governments do not hold. I mean, he didn't send them to court, but some were dismissed, others were compelled to pay taxes. Those who were able to prove that their earnings came from lawful sources paid taxes. Some properties were confiscated. And so it is not the case that government, especially, I mean, I'm talking from the point of view of the NDC, that governments are not willing to hold the appointees accountable, except that the accountability principle becomes manifest when the government loses power. Because, as we have seen in the case of the recently convicted Ashanti Regional Chairman, our politics have grown to the point that it seems to me that political appointees and people in politics aligned to a government, a sitting government, somehow buy a political insurance not to be prosecuted. We must see the glaring omissions or commissions of those people. But because they are aligned to that government, and that government thinks that they have contributed to their success in an election, or they are political office holders within their party, it feels difficult. And that translates into a form of insurance against prosecution.
Let me ask you this before I go to the Honorable John Daku. Would you say the same of Joseph Yamin? Because people have also called for him, since his name came up in illegal mining, for him to also be brought to book. Has he also secured insurance with the government?
Joseph Yamin's case, we appear to be jumping the gun, and I've explained it elsewhere. Joseph Yamin has been accused of being engaged in illegal mining activity. And I'm going to demonstrate to you how leadership matters in this matter. There's an allegation against him. That allegation became public when the president said he had referred them to, he's received the allegation against them, and he has referred them to the appropriate authorities for investigation. Probably that's when you heard about it. So it is an allegation which has to be investigated. And I've said elsewhere that when an allegation is made against a person, until a prima facie case is made against that person, you don't prosecute that person.
So I asked you that question because you talked about a government in power and the executives or followers feeling that because their government is in power, they are insured. And we know the same thing of Wuntumi, for instance, the case you brought up. We heard the former president say that Akunta mining was not involved in illegal mining. So your argument is that people feel they are insured when their party is in power.
Yes.
And that's why I asked you the same question.
No.
Is it the
So
same with Yami?
it's not the same in this matter. It's not the same because all that we are waiting for now with regards to Yamin and the other national executive officer is for the investigative authority, which the case was referred to come out with their investigative report. When they do so, and they incriminate these two persons in illegal mining activities, then you and I will have the legitimate right to ask for their prosecution.
How long will it take? Because that case came up even before Wuntumi's
No.
legal processes
That's not true. Wuntumi's case started even long before MPP left office. I, as Minister for Lands and Natural Resources, I can tell you without any fear of doubt that when the president set up the task force for us to clean the illegal mining sites, at that time, Wuntumi's known company was Hansol Mining. It was a mine support service.
And I'll come back to you, the Honorable Yunus Afuseni. I want to get your preliminary thought as well, the Honorable John Dako. Really, I was saying that before we even go into the case, and we'll go into some of the high-profile cases under the Fourth Republic. What are your preliminary thoughts on this perception that governments are prosecuting people politically, just, using the law as a guise?
Well, I mean, let's face it, let's be honest with ourselves. Depending on who is answering this question and at what time the question is being answered, the answer that, yes, government is using the law as a tool to punish political opponents. Or the person will say, well, the law work? Because if you look at the Fourth Republic, government, and at least if we start from before up to date, one can say that under Kufuor's government, some NDC members were jailed, and so if something like that is done now, it is just normal, and that it's just business as usual. When my senior colleague started his submission, he sought to make the point that from the NDC's point of view, they believe in self-accountability, and that even President Rawlings had to terminate appointment of some of his people. I know him to be a very fair-minded person, so I was expecting that at least he also make reference to Kufuor's regime, where Malam Issa was jailed under Kufuor's term. He was a minister of state. In fact, he was a sports minister at the time. He was jailed. We all know the story. When about $46,000 meant for the Black Stars during their World Cup qualifiers in Sudan went missing. Under Kufuor's government, he was jailed. Under Kufuor's government, he had been accused of engaging in some wrongdoing. He was made to step aside until the case he was cleared by Shrag before he was brought back. So we need to be fair to the system that where the parties have held their own accountable, we should admit that. And if we talk about the Constitution, the probity and accountability, and we seem to believe that yes, probity and accountability must be accountable to the people who give you power. I absolutely believe in that. And just by preliminary point, I can say this for the NPP. There's a party that believes in law, believes in rule of law, believes in fair trial, believes that our constitution is supreme, and our laws must be respected if we are to build a nation that will last and we can all live in happily. All of us need to respect the law. And so that fundamental principle for us in the NPP is unshakable, that we believe that the law must always work, must take its course, and that is the only way we can develop as a country. Now, if you look at the probity and accountability that my senior colleague mentioned, and vis-a-vis what the the apostles of probity and accountability did when they came to power, you really wonder whether indeed the NDC as a political party believes in probity and accountability, that you must be accountable if you are given power. Some of us had criminal charges against him. When the NDC came to power, the first thing they did was to formally withdraw all the cases. The current finance minister, Dr. Kasla Tuforsen, he had a case against him. It was at the Court of Appeal, and the AG had prepared the appeal going to the Supreme Court when the Court of Appeal dismissed the appeal. When the government came, they withdrew the prosecution, and so Tuforsen is working free, and he's a finance minister because the case against him was not full to its logical conclusion. A government that believes in probity.
You mean the ambulance case when he was deputy finance minister?
Yes.
But was it not the same case that we had the former Attorney General Godfred Yabo Adame trying to establish a plea bargaining with Richard Jakpa that ended up, bringing out all these stories?
So at the time the NDC came to power, there was an appeal prepared. The AG was appealing that case, and we know it's a fact. They entered nolle prosequi. My senior will explain that the Attorney General entered nolle prosequi in that case. There are two forcing cases. The Supreme Court, a party that believes in probity and accountability, Dr. Stephen Opuni and Sedi Ogongo. Colombian. Okay, High Court charges relating to financial malfeasance in Cocoa Board. What happened? A party that believes in probity and accountability, the case was dropped. My own colleague and somebody I respect, but hey, Colin Zauda, financial misconduct in the housing project. A party that believes in probity and accountability. What happened? They entered nolle prosequi. Okay, Johnson Siama Pandit. He was involved in a lot of issues at the Bank of Ghana, where he has been appointed as the governor right now, a party that believes in probity and accountability. So when we posit that we believe in probity and accountability, but when it comes to our own, we protect them, then we are not being fair. Then we are not being totally truthful.
So do you side with the perception that a lot of these cases, I mean those that we've cited even from Rawlings' time up until now, have been politically motivated, which was the earlier question I asked?
Yes, that's what I'm saying. I'll give you an answer, but I'm saying that depending on who you are asking, the answer can be yes, it can be no. Look, and even at the time you are asking the question, because look, if you ask my senior colleague, okay, honorable, that in 2022, 2023, when these cases against Fosuan Pofo, Atuforsen, the Opuni, Colonizada, and some of you, he will tell you that they were political, and he will justify why it is good that they've been withdrawn and the people are working for that. He will justify that. Much the same. If you ask about the prosecution of all these NPP people, okay, if I don't put on my professional lens, I'm likely to say that they are all political and brand everything political. Now, if you do that as a country, we are not going to be able to fight the corruption you all want to fight. So we need, let me make this one. So we need to look at each case on its merit. And so for me, it would be wrong for us to take the brush, paint all of them that, either they are all political or they are all non-political. We have to look at them case by case basis. that on this particular one, we think that it is more political than the fight corruption.
So let's look at the case-by-case bit that you talk about. And I want to go back to the Dr. Kasiel Atuforsin case. Yes, the Attorney General put in a formal request, as it were, to withdraw pending actions and moved to continue or discontinue the matter. But you're also aware that it got to a point where a number of lawyers were calling even for the former Attorney General, Godfrey Yeboah Adame, to be sanctioned by the General Legal Counsel because of how he went about the plea bargaining and eventually the kind of stories that came up, and others arguing that perhaps that might have influenced the outcome of the case. How do you respond to that?
Again, you see, Beatrice, I think that it would be wrong for us to just look at this from mere hearsay, okay? To just come to the conclusion that we want us to come to. I think that the Deputy Attorney General, the former Attorney General, believed in his case. That is why he was pursuing it in court. And that is why we should have allowed the case to come to its logical conclusion through the court system. Because in the end, we have the court as the arbiter, okay? We have the court as the one that will determine whether the charges that are brought are strong or weak, and whether they should succeed or not. Okay, so it's not enough to say that because some lawyers were saying that they are done when it means that the case was politically motivated. But those lawyers who were saying that may have their own political persuasion, and that probably influenced the comments they made, which you are referring to. And that is why I believe.
But were the comments not backed by the events that took place? The comments were backed by the events that took place.
But I'm saying that the Attorney General believed in the strength of his case. That is why he was so pursuing it in court. He didn't believe that it was political. Okay? And the new government should have ensured that the case had gone on to its logical conclusion. I think that they would have made these gentlemen whole, all right, rather than entering the nolle prosequi just to wash the case away. When you do that, in the minds of the public, oh, these people were already guilty, except that they were protected by their government. But if you had allowed them to go through the legal process and the court acquitted them, then we all know that the charges against them did not succeed.
So the argument you're making is that, for instance, this particular case, if it had gone through, it would have helped to clear the perception that a lot of these cases are politically motivated. That's the argument you're making in some.
Because as I sit here right now, you can't tell me that the cases I listed, to force, Colozalda and Johnson and Sama, you cannot tell me that they were clear and I'll believe it. Because they were encouraged to abandon the court to have made its decision. So I know that this entry of nolle prosequi was nothing but political. But the question, you see, why is that only these top NDC politicians' cases were withdrawn? Why? Because I believe that there were other NDC members who had cases, and maybe he had gone to beat somebody, his wife had taken him to court. They were NDC people. Why didn't they enter nolle prosequi for all those people? Those people are probably going to steal goat or cow.
I want to come.
They wanted to clear them, and that's why they entered the nolle prosequi for them. And so that's what makes it political.
I want to come to you, Honorable Eunice Afuseni, for you to respond to some of the things, and then I'll go to Professor Enoch Entry, who is also joined us via video call.
So, Honorable Darko is perfectly within his right to think that the entry of nolle prosequi in respect of the persons who were standing trial under the MPP by the Attorney General was politically motivated. I will not pick a fight with him. But I will pick a fight with him because of procedure. You see, when a person is charged with the commission of a crime, that person's rights, freedom, are curtailed. And that is why in criminal trials, speedy trial is advocated. That was why Kufuor set up the fast track so that we can expedite, because that person, I mean, his rights, his movements and all those things are restricted.
But how well did the fast track work?
Listen to me. If you believe that Adu Forson committed a crime in the imputation of the ambulance case, the trial of the case need not take 6 years. If it takes 6 years, you may be fishing for evidence. And we saw it in Japa and the Attorney General's debacle. Fishing for evidence. That you can say clearly that the Attorney General who was prosecuting the case himself was not convinced of the guilt of Adu Forson. You can say that clearly. If you say Collins Dauda did not start Segleme. Segleme was started under E.T. Mensah.
The late E.T. Mensah.
Collins Dauda's role was to continue with payments. If your issue of Segleme was that somebody was wrong, or the whole project was wrong, and that the payments made under the project could not be sustained, and that probity and accountability required that those who were connected with the project be hauled before the courts. Tell me why you selected Collins Dauda over E.T. Mensah. Why? And when some of the payments, when your minister came into office and authorized some other payments under the project, it was a matter of payment. Now, so when you begin arguing the way you're arguing, as lawyers, we must be honest to the facts of the case. Everybody should be worried that you can accuse a person of having committed a crime and take 7 years to prove your case and even fail to prove the case. You must worry. Was it harassment? Or was it an attempt to frame up those people? Opuni, he cited Opuni. Evidence upon evidence in court showed clearly that the fertilizer, liquid fertilizer that Opuni was said to have imported resulted in yields, improvement of yields for farmers. And farmers came to court to testify. And there was no evidence that showed clearly that Opuni benefited in any way from the fertilizer importation contracts. But, well, they went ahead and failed for those number of years to establish a case against Opuni. This is what we see as witch hunting opponents of the government. But the government, he cited Madam Issa was an appointee of John Ajekum Kufuor on the Great Alliance platform.
But what about the point, and I'll go to
Professor. What I'm saying is that Madam Issa was not an MPP member.
Okay, so I want to ask you this question briefly, if you could answer briefly, and then I'll go to Professor Inokenchi. I did say that he's joined us. The Honorable John Darko also made a point that, okay, even if you believed that you didn't want to protect your own, was there a need to enter noli prosequi? Why didn't you allow the case to
What were you going to
end?
prove? Because I've just explained to you that there must be a prima facie evidence. We don't think that the previous Attorney General even established that. In the ambulance case, we don't think they even established the prima facie culpability of Adu Forson. No.
I want to come to you, Professor.
Then you're talking about Madam Issa. Abuga Pele was an appointee of government. You know that?
The Jida issue.
No. The Jida. Yes, the Jida issue. The NS, National Service Secretary. Yes. But what happened?
I want to come to you, Professor Inokenchi, and then we'll move on to some of the other cases, and then we'll get your perspectives on it. Prof, I don't know whether you've had the opportunity to listen into the conversation, but obviously in the last few months and indeed weeks and days, we've had the conversation come up again about why governments are prosecuting ex-officials, and they feel that this is politically motivated. I want to believe that you've seen a number of the cases as well in the last few months, and indeed years under the Fourth Republic. What would be your assessment of some of the cases that we've had, and whether or not
thank you very much,
they are in line
Beatrice.
politically?
Yes, thank you very much. Anytime there is an issue, and let me say greetings to your cherished viewers everywhere in the world. I have listened to the argument from the legal side, from the political side, from the people's side, and then from the street. And when you do that, you are able to step aside and then deduce the logic behind everything. Now, anytime a politician is jailed, we have three truths. We have the truth of the MPP, the truth of the NDC, and then the truth of those who are on the side of reality. So what is real here in our issue? Now, I am always guided by 7 C's that I talk about: consciousness of self, congruence, commitment, collaboration, common purpose, controversy with civility, and then citizenship. So the last two of the C's we are always struggling with anytime there's a politician who is jailed for one reason or the other. That is controversy with civility and then citizenship.
Yeah.
So when we talk about citizens, who are the citizens? What are we looking for? In fact, I was there. I saw Kwame Pepra and Victor Solomon, not at Nsawam, but Ketekrachi prison. I was working with the German government. So I have seen everything, and people have said that 10 NDC people have been jailed, just one NPP person, and then everywhere they're going haywire, and they are calling it witch hunting. I don't know if there are witches in politics that we have to hunt them. But if you are corrupted, because Fuseni, Honorable Fuseni, I was with him on Wezo TV, I think last week, and we're talking about the issue of the tribunals. When we talk about issue of wound to me, and people are talking about witch hunting and all those things going on, there seems to be MPP truth, the legal truth, and then the common person on the street truth. But I think that those who are communicating for each political party should do well to explain to the level of anybody on the street who can understand.
Prof, are you not oversimplifying by saying that you don't think there are any witches in politics and therefore the need for witch hunting? Are you not oversimplifying this whole thing?
I am saying that I've never seen witches in politics. So which of the witches are you hunting? So unless you want to prove to me that those in politics are witches, then we are hunting them. But if you corrupt yourself, we have corrupt people in politics all over the world. In America, in Europe, in China, I'm talking about Asia, in different parts of Africa, we have corrupt people. Those need to be fished out and punished by the law.
Exactly.
So what I'm trying to say is that let's go to the basics of the issue. One, the bottom line is that Woon to me, which is Bernard Njibu, he was convicted on 6 counts legally on mining charges, not political charges, by a high court. So I don't know why people are making this politics. Maybe it's the timing that he was contesting for national chairman, and then MPP feels that their party's image is being tarnished because there's going to be a vacuum. Maybe that is the reason why. But he wasn't convicted on any political charge. He was convicted on mining charges. So legally, yeah, he's an MPP president politically, an Ashanti regional chairman who was vying for national chairman. But
what has vying for a position within your political party got to do with supposedly charges against you as regards your work?
I'm saying that the timing is where the problem is, because those who are speaking for that he's a political prisoner and not any convicted on mining issue, I say that he's a political prisoner, and I'm saying that he wasn't charged on any political offense. He was charged on mining offense, 6 different counts, and there were evidence and there were procedures at the court. Is that not the fact? That is the fact.
So do I hear
So
you?
why are we making this politics?
Do I hear you say, in summary, that you do not support the arguments that a lot of these high-profile cases are politically motivated?
I'm saying that we should be able to delineate politics from corrupt issues. Since NDC came, is it anybody in MPP that has been apprehended by the court and going to the court to answer to charges? There are many MPP people who are walking free at the streets. Nobody has invited them because they've not committed anything wrong against the state. So I am asking the question, if somebody is convicted, so let's use the case study of Wontumi, his own lawyers pleaded that this is his first offense, he's a good citizen, he's a family member, so the judge should be lenient to him. They pleaded that the judge should be lenient to him and should give him 15 years instead of the maximum of 25 years, and the judge gave him 20 years. So let me ask a question. If your own judges, if your own lawyers go to court and then they say that we admit that our client is wrong, but please temper justice with mercy, what is the political witch hunting in it?
What is the political witch hunting in it? You ask that question. When we come back,
Beatrice.
Yes, very briefly. I need to go for a break.
I want to understand something. Is Professor Inokenchi a lawyer?
He is a governance expert. He's a governance expert. So
does not matter. Another question. I don't know why you're asking about this, but I want just to make it that
Mr. John Darko. Mr. John Darko. Mr. John Darko and Professor Inokenchi, gentlemen, please, when we come back, I'll give you the opportunity to respond. And of course, we'll look at some of the cases that we've seen since the Fourth Republic and whether or not these were politically motivated or people were just being held accountable for their actions and inactions. Stay with us.
The world around us is changing, not slowly, not quietly. In the north, the rains that once arrived on time don't come anymore. In the middle belt, rivers and forests disappearing overnight. Along the coast, the sea is swallowing land that families have called home for generations. Rising temperatures, failed harvests, homes lost to tides. This is not a warning about tomorrow. This is the world right now. TV3 and the German Embassy in Ghana. The conversation on climate security implications in Ghana. The Climate Talks 2026. 5 cities, 5 conversations, 1 urgent call to action. Tamale, Bolgatanga, Kumasi, Keta, Accra. Starting this June 2026. The climate talks are coming, and this time, the people most affected by Ghana's climate security crisis will be at the center of it all. Because the time for Ghana to act is now. In a world full of noise, clarity matters. Stories shape us, ideas challenge us. An honest dialogue moves us forward. This is a space for depth, where voices are heard and perspectives matter. Conversations with Dr. Abinanya Kwasmeni, coming soon on TV3.
TV3, first in news.
EM Sharp. Performing live, Moe String Ensemble. Sina Soul.
Living out my words that don't let them in, cause I know that I'm blessed.
But remember, audience should be seated by 7:30 p.m. only on TV3.
Agenda for transformation and national development. The big and important stories are treated from the human interest angle, while the facts and the figures are painted with precision. So now, let's cut the convention and start the conversation here on Ghana Tonight. I am your host, Alfred Okamsi.
Ghana Tonight shows Monday to Friday at 10 p.m. on TV3.
Brought to you by
Flamingo Paint, superior durability, superior hiding, superior coverage, simply superior.
Kel Charcoal Toothpaste.
You're still here on Agenda on TV3. My name is Beatrice Adu. Tonight we're looking at whether or not Ghana is practicing rule of law or rule of politics. Are we prosecuting people politically, or really we are holding them accountable? And I want to come back to you, the Honourable John Darko, because I realize you wanted to respond to Professor Inokenchi briefly before we go into some of the cases that we've seen over the years and your views on them.
Okay, all right. So, thank you. Honestly, I asked whether the professor was a lawyer because of some of the statements he made getting to the tail end of his submission, Because if you're a lawyer, you understand that after a person has been convicted, okay, the lawyers always ask for what you call plea of mitigation, ask that the sentences be reduced, they will make an argument for the sentences to be reduced. It does not amount to admission of guilt. And so to say that his own lawyers pleaded for mitigation and so it amounts to admission of guilt is completely wrong.
Okay.
That's not what it does. And then he also made a point that Untumi was convicted on all the 6 counts. That's also not true. It's not borne by the judgment. And so please ask them to read the judgment. And I will tell you, the judgment is very clear. If he wants, I can send me a copy. Page 58. Untumi was sentenced and convicted only on 2 counts out of the 6. I don't know why people do this. On count 1 and on count 4. Count 3, count 3 and count 6 were for the third defendant. Okay, and if you were to go into the case, maybe we'll go into it. But you see, I'm surprised. You asked her to look at the general view, and then he straight away zoomed into me, accusing him here and there.
And I want us to go into, yes, because of time, I want us to go into some of the cases that I did mention. That, for instance, under the former John Ejekum Kufuor administration between 2001 and 2009, we had some high-profile cases. Victor Selome, we had Kwame Pepra, we had Chachi Chikata, Dan Abodakpi, Malam Issa that we talked about. And, of course, causing financial loss to the states. Chachi's own, for instance, was on 3 counts, causing financial loss to the state, misapplying public property, among others. Under the Mills Mahama administration, we had the XTX Housing, Jida Suba judgment death cases, Alfred Woyome as well, which was a very popular case. Under the Akufo-Addo's 2017-2024 administration, we had the Office of the Special Prosecutor, obviously established, and in the Mahama administration, we've had the Operation Recover or Loot, the oral. And now cases investigated, we've had Airbus bribery allegations, Cecilia Dapa investigations, Charles Edubuahini currently still ongoing, Saglemi Housing, former appointees across administrations, and of course, presently, since the former president, John Mahama, then came back to power to finish his second term, as it were, we've had Ken Oforiatta still ongoing, NPA CEO Mustafa Abdul Hamid, former GRA customs official, SML-related Chairman Untumi and Akunta Mining that we're still talking about now. Looking at all of these cases, you are lawyers. I believe that you followed, if not all, some of them. Would you say that glancing through these cases, a number of them were politically motivated? And if that is the case, because of time, let me ask you 2 questions in one. What should be the way forward, just so we are able to have the right perception about the kind of cases that we send to our courts and the outcomes eventually? I'm starting with the Honorable Mr.
So, even if you come to the conclusion that a case is politically motivated, you must trust in the judicial system to sift through the facts and determine whether an accused person is guilty of the offense for which he has been charged. You must. If I consider the cases you have mentioned are not exhaustive.
Yes.
But that should tell you that it appears to me that political appointees previous public office holders are only held accountable when their party is out of power.
What's the point you made earlier?
So, in line with the desire of the NDC as the first government under this constitutional dispensation, the Fourth Republic, and our belief in probity and accountability, the government then under late Jerry John Rawlings promulgated the law that amended the Criminal and Other Offences Act by the inclusion of Section 179,
yes,
which is causing financial loss to the state.
Yes.
The law stayed on the status books. That law was passed by the NDC. In fact, at that time, MPP was not even represented in Parliament. But the law was intended to catch the NDC appointees who willfully, negligently, or recklessly caused financial loss to the state. But stayed on the status books until NDC lost power. The first invocation of the law was against Kwame Pepra and others, causing financial loss. And that was done by President Kufuor.
And if you could be wrapping up for me.
Now, again, the Minerals and Mining Act was passed by Kufuor. When I was Minister of State at the Ministry of Lands and Natural Resources, I came to the conclusion that the sentence under the law was not deterrent enough. At that time, it was being treated as a misdemeanor. So I sponsored an amendment to move it from 3 to 5 years to 5 to 10 years. Now, I left the ministry before that amendment was carried through. But when Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo came into office, he also believed that the 5 to 10 years was not deterrent enough. And so got his Attorney General, Miss Gloria Akufu, to bring a bill to Parliament suggesting to amend the Minerals and Mining Act 703, as amended then, by replacing or substituting a sentence of 5 to 10 to 10 to 15 years. Now, when it came to Parliament, the minority then, led by my good friend, Chairman Sabunsu, thought that 10 to 15 years was not deterrent enough. And they further amended, after our committee report, I was a ranking member of the Constitutional, Legal and Parliamentary Affairs.
Honorable, I'll be grateful for you to wrap up for us.
After a consideration of the bill, we recommended that the 10 to 15 years be passed. But in Parliament, that was substituted for 50 to 25 years. MPP did not apply it. They didn't apply the law. They had opportunity when a person at the Ministry of Lands and Natural Resources was caught facilitating illegal mining, but they chose to charge that person. That person was a special assistant to the minister. They chose to charge that person under defrauding by false pretenses because they knew the sentence was going to be penalized.
So, in summary, your point is?
My point is, these laws are on our statute books. It again goes to confirm that political parties are very reluctant in using the law against their own appointees.
So is the reason the governments that come into power must proceed with prosecutions?
And then you ask what we should do. Until political parties begin using the law against their own appointees who are caught having conducted themselves in violation of the law, this criticism of political witch hunting will not stop.
Will not stop. I want to get your thoughts, Professor Inokenchi, your final word on this, and then I'll give the final word as well to Mr. John Darko. Professor Inokenchi, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you.
Yes,
can
please.
You hear me?
Yes, in about 50 seconds, please give us your final thoughts on.
Give me just 50 seconds.
Because we've run out of time, please.
Yes, I believe that we have to practice rule of law instead of rule of politics, because rule of law means that we are all equal before the law. Whether you are the president or you are a cleaner, we are all Ghanaians, we are all citizens. And power belongs to we, the people. That is number one. Two, any political prosecution will always be seen through political lens in Ghana, whether we like it or not. That's how people are going to see it. I wanted to go to the details, but in the end, we have to know whether justice is served or not. And I think that in most of the political cases, even though justice is served, people will always read politics into it because of maybe the timing and the individuals involved. But we should step away from that. And then we should make sure that we enforce the law regardless of politics. And then use the evidences as the court have done. And then make sure that we trust the law and the system. Other than that, we'll be having a lot of challenges. But I believe that the legal processes that we've gone through, whether we like it or not, that is how we should live as citizens. We should let the law work. In all the cases that you have mentioned, somehow the law worked, but politicians will find a way to make it political, and we should step away from it.
Beatrice, and I just want to read just a few comments before I come to you for your final word, Mr. John Darko. Michael Ledem on Facebook says, Beatrice, good evening to you and your panelists. Were we in this country when these same people were shouting, go to court, go to court? I want to ask what has changed. They should simply give us a break. On YouTube, Victor says, we'll fight corruption. If the MPP stays in opposition for 45 years, John Darko, please spare us. And Danny says, the tribunal has come to stay to deal with any Ghanaian thief. Those who looted the state monies and properties as well should better prepare the defense first. Mr. John Darko, please, your final thought. I think you're muted. We can't hear you.
Oh, you should hear me. Hello?
Yes, we can hear you now. Please go ahead.
Yes. I'm saying that I didn't know we were discussing the tribunal. I thought we were discussing the prosecutions generally.
Yes.
But, you know, I think that we as a country, we all need to come to the point that corruption. I've said our problems as a country starts and ends with corruption. So if we're able to fight corruption head on, we will do well as a country. Now, I agree is that, when you live as politicians, we always want to protect our. It's always like that. But that shouldn't be the case.
That shouldn't be.
Where a wrong has been committed, we should all be committed to fighting that wrong, irrespective of which political color that person wears. In fact, if we are not very careful, we'll get to a situation where all criminals will join political parties so that when they commit a crime,
they'll be protected.
They have insurance.
All right, we'll have to end it here. Thank you very much. I'm sorry, we've run out. Yes. We'll run out of time. Good evening, Beatrice and your panelists. That's coming from Prince Nanaya York. Let's unite as Ghanaians beyond political parties. Accountability must apply to everyone if we want to fight corruption and stop the reckless actions of politicians so that Ghana becomes a better home for the generations to come. The moment to act is now. Thank you very much for your messages. So many of you sending us your messages. And I want to say a big thank you to you as well. The Honorable Inusa Fuseni, lawyer, former member of parliament for Tamale Central in the Northern Region, for joining us. Also to you as well, the Honorable John Darko, sitting member of parliament for Swami in the Ashanti region and also legal counsel for the minority in parliament. And to you as well, Professor Enoch Entry, governance expert. Thank you as well for joining in and sharing your thoughts with us. My name is Beatrice Adu. Thank you very much for joining us on Agenda Tonight. Do join us again next week. Shortly is Ghana Tonight. Just stay with us. Thank you for joining us.